Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And take a while too.
And welcome to the triumphant return of Tiki's Universe. That's right, folks. After a couple months worth of hiatus and just kind of being lazy and not really getting on the schedule with certain things, we have returned. We are going to be back with Tiki's Universe. It is the show where we recap and respond to everything in the world of modern animation. I mean, not every single show out there, but a good majority of them, Jacob. I mean, I shouldn't even say majority, I mean in my own words, but we've got a good plethora of content for you guys, Jacob. We've got, of course, we're going to be starting with Rick and Morty, which just had its season premiere a couple days ago. DuckTales is on the horizon at about a week and a half, which is a show that we've been building up on the channel for over a year now. We just got a new Star vs. Forces of Evil. The first, what is it, Jacob? The first, 8 episodes were dropped for Star vs. Forces of Evil on Comic-Con week.
Basically.
So there's a lot to catch up on, folks. And we're going to be inducting the newest, besides Rick and Morty. I mean, Rick and Morty, this is a series that obviously we're kind of jumping into after season, in the new season, but it's still got 2 seasons. But Jacob, we're going to be taking on a brand new show, which is Welcome to the Wayne, the new show on Nickelodeon. Now, I think it's really important for the Tiki's Universe lineup to include a Nickelodeon show, because I think Nickelodeon is very much on the upswing while Cartoon Network continues to kind of go on the downswing. Like, even Steven Universe can't really save Cartoon Network now because Steven Universe has kind of fallen off in terms of quality a little bit. Not saying Steven Universe is a bad show, just saying it's not really the amazing show it used to be like back in season 3. So I definitely think Nickelodeon's on the upswing, and Jacob and I, we both agree that Welcome to the Wayne from the first 5 episodes we've seen has a lot of potential, so I definitely want to start covering that. But of course, since it just premiered and the show's got such a big following, and Jacob and I, you and I, we love the show. I mean, I think it's fair to say I love the show a little bit more than you do because you're not all the way caught up with it.
Probably.
Okay. But alas, yes. I don't know, Jacob, I don't know why you stopped watching. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit? I don't know.
Yeah, for this one, I mean, I had it for a while, but I guess I got halfway through season 2 and I just stopped watching for some reason. I don't know. It just I was binging the episodes and just stopped for some reason.
I mean, it wasn't for a lack of interest. It was just kind of like one of those things when you binge watch something and then something else comes along and then, other things occupy your attention. So you've got some catching up to do, Jacob. But of course, Rick and Morty, the thing I love about Rick and Morty, and I believe this is the first adult cartoon that we're covering on Tiki's Universe. Is that right? I'm pretty sure it is.
As far as I'm sure, I mean, as far as I'm aware, I mean, I don't know what you and Dragon have covered in the past.
It's just Steven Universe, and then the rest of it has been you.
Well, then I guess this is the first adult cartoon we've done.
Yeah, I just love the complex sci-fi ideas that Rick and Morty sets forth. That, to me, is like the basis for a lot of the best episodes. And to tell you the truth, season 3, episode 2 is it kind of falls into the latter category of Rick and Morty episodes that I'm not a big fan of, and that being the parody episodes.
Yeah, especially after the Rick Shank redemption, this episode kind of fell flat a bit.
I don't think it's a bad episode, but
don't get me wrong. It had some very great moments and all, but I mean,
Rick Shank redemption was a hell of a way to open the season. Yeah,
I mean, it had a lot more humor, a lot more action, a lot more fucking drama, and I mean, it just had a lot more of everything,
and a lot more like trippy sci-fi, like Christopher Nolan meta stuff going on,
and a lot more Rick.
Oh yeah, a lot more Rick. So
more Rick. Not enough Rickness here.
Yeah, I mean, and like I think when the show does straight up parodies, it's when the show is at its weakest, because I think the show kind of thrives on originality. So a lot of people really like the episode from season 1, Anatomy Park, and I'm just kind of on that one. I don't know. It's not the best for me. I believe what
For me, it's what they do with the parodies, and like just like a lot of other shows, it's like what they do with the parodies.
I just think this show it's got such a rich mythology and such a rich world building and a huge universe to explore that when you're literally just like, oh, okay, now we're going to do The Purge, which I think is the worst episode of the series, like by a long stretch is the Purge episode. Or in this case, like you have it because I think it's like season 3 episode, season 2 episode 9, something like that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Yeah,
it's a very forgettable episode. I didn't like that episode at all. And then here it's
I remember Anatomy Park. I mean, I did like that one actually.
I like it. I'm kind of, like I said, I just think the series, like, I think the series is at its strongest when it just gets into like these trippy, super cool worlds that are just unlike anything we've ever seen. And while Anatomy Park,
and this is basically, hey, it's Mad Max.
Yeah, like 3 years after the fact with Fury Road almost. It's I don't know. This was one of the episodes that we saw in the season 3 trailer that I just wasn't looking forward to all that much, so I'm kind of glad that we got it out of the way early. Like I said, not a bad episode. Let's talk about some of the positives here, Jacob. I think the episode... Go ahead.
As far as originality goes, I do like what they did with Morty's arm.
Yes, I think Morty's arm is definitely the highlight of the episode for sure.
How it's basically its own character, and he's just like, you don't even know what's going on. Like, why did it beat up that guy? Why did it go drown a guy in a bathtub?
Well, I think you kind of got the general idea because you saw that one quick flashback, like, oh, hey, how's it feel to see your whole family burned alive? I'm gonna whip you.
Oh yeah.
So generally, this arm is like a savage warrior that lost its family and is now out for vengeance.
Well, yeah, I got that much. Just like I love it. Just like it's like, okay, his arm is alive. Just roll with it.
And just the animation on the arm, I think, is fantastic. Especially when Morty first gets the arm and he doesn't know how to control it. He's just like, oh jeez, don't come in here if you don't want to die. I'm sorry, I'm not controlling this. Just the arm just ripping people apart. This show just has such a visceral way to showcase gore in kind of a creative sort of way. You know what I mean? It almost turns gore into an art form almost.
What's good is that it doesn't go overboard.
No, it really doesn't. It doesn't go overboard like other Adult Swim shows would in a situation like this. But you get just enough for it to almost kind of be like realistic, like, ooh, God, like you could kind of feel the pain on it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Like even Rick Shake Redemption didn't have a lot of gore in it. Then that had a massive body count.
Right. Also, just before we go any further, folks, of course, we're doing season 3, episode 2. Because Rick Shake Redemption aired, of course, Jacob, I'm sure you'll remember this, when it was a big April Fool's joke, and Samurai Jack, when we were covering Samurai Jack, was supposed to have aired in its place, but alas.
I forgot about that. Technically, that could count as our first adult cartoon.
Samurai Jack, actually, yeah, that's very true, actually. Good call on that.
I mean, it's like first 4 were children, and now season 5 was adults, so... Well, more adult, I guess.
I mean, I think with Rick and Morty, this is definitely the first adult comedy we got, because obviously Samurai Jack, that was like just a super artistic show, where this is just straight up, Rick and Morty's got, like I said, it's got great sci-fi ideas, but at the heart of it, it's a comedy.
Oh yeah.
All right, so yeah, the Morty arm subplot is absolutely the highlight for me.
And how it brings to light how Morty's actually feeling about the divorce when he's like trying to pass it, like, oh yeah, I'm fine, like passing it off onto like Summer and Rick and all that. But like when it's like he was like suffering as well, like because he's just trying to pass it off, and it manifested through his arm.
It's like a funny sort of like touching it's like a touchy, it's almost like a boy and his dog story in a way, you know what I mean? Which is weird to say.
A boy and his freaking genocide arm.
Yeah, yeah. Which only this show could pull off something like that and have it actually work. And by the end of it, when Morty's like, I'm gonna miss you, arm. You're like, oh man, they did have some good times together. Like Morty got out a lot of stress. They killed some folks.
Yep.
Oh man. So what is this, like a ghost? You're just gonna disappear?
Yeah.
Surprising amount of character development from Summer this episode. I feel like season 3 we're definitely going to have more of a focus on Rick and Summer. That was something that was starting to come into focus in season 2, but I think season 3 is going to be like a main plot line.
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, in my opinion, she was always underutilized.
I mean, like I said, I think there's some season 2 episodes where she gets more of a focus, like as season 2 kind of goes on.
No, well, like I said, I don't remember. I only got through half of the season.
Yeah, season 1 she was definitely underutilized.
And I noticed that in the beginning of season two, but as it went on, she began to become more like go on Rick and Morty's adventures as well.
Right. And I like how at this point, she's like the cool grandkid.
Yeah, and you could arguably say that now that she's also sharing as much screen time as Morty here. Nowadays.
I mean, at least in this episode, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. In this episode, she got as much alone time as Morty did.
Yeah,
not more.
Let me see. I think the robot versions of Summer and Morty were hilarious, and that was actually a really cool plot line I wished that more of the episode was focused on it. The whole idea of, Rick just abandoning Summer and Morty in this apocalyptic wasteland, because that's something that Rick's always kind of flirted with and threatened Summer and Morty with, but never actually gone through with.
He always saying, I can replace it with any thousands of your duplicates.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know, I thought, to tell you the truth, I thought it was a little bit of a wasted opportunity to see something like that go down. I love when it's in the middle of the car chase, he uses the portal, and then there's one guy who's like, my body is chrome, who goes with him through the portal.
And then he's like, my blood is my gas is my blood. It's nope, just regular blood. Rick doesn't even care anymore.
So I guess I don't know. I do kind of believe Rick when he says the only reason he went back for Summer and Morty is that retrieving them would be slightly more convenient than putting up the charade with the robots in front of Beth. That being said, I do just kind of taking the breadcrumbs as we get them, Jacob, I'm sorry. I do think that at the end of the day, if Rick is loyal to anyone, I think it's Beth.
Well, that's his daughter, so.
I mean, I think we've seen that throughout the series. I definitely, Morty, Morty and Rick obviously have a complicated dynamic. I think at the end of the day, Rick, he can't help but sort of have a fond spot for the little brat, but he still is very antagonistic towards him. And there's a lot of things that Morty's doing nowadays, especially in the main plot, where Morty's kind of being this, voice of dissent within Rick's life. And that's, obviously not playing well for him, which is why he's growing so close with Summer is, Summer is just embracing the lifestyle.
Yeah. For a while, she it's kind of they're opposite now. Morty never really was into his adventures anyway. Rick just dragged him along.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because even in the first episode, it was the first episode is brutal for the way that Rick just drags Morty into this terrible situation, and Morty just doesn't want to be there the whole time. He's scared out of his mind. That really sets a precedent for the show. You know what I mean? And for at least the first half of season 1, that was honestly kind of the whole gimmick of the show. Is it's Back to the Future, except it's an abusive Doc Brown with a Marty McFly who does not want to be on this adventure.
And something I didn't in the whole in the season one, episode 1 of this season. Like you mentioned, the whole Cronenberg war was Rick's fault. When technically it was Morty tampering with the love potion that caused it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, did you forgive Morty? Technically, it's your fault.
And obviously, I think the Cronenberg world was like the big turning point in the show's storytelling, where it went from just kind of this weird offbeat Back to the Future parody to something else. You know what I mean? Something that like you really had to sink your teeth into with the ideas.
More existential in a way.
Exactly. Yeah, that was, I mean, that I honestly think that episode is almost like a landmark of adult TV animation for what it did. You know what I mean? It really pushed the groundwork of storytelling. Oh my God. Because literally it's the whole idea is like Rick and Morty's in the entire world that we've been living in for the past 5 or so episodes of season 1 is now just done. It's gone. I mean, if that's not a game changer, I don't know what is. Anyways,
now we're here, season 3, episode 2, where basically nothing of note happens.
All right. I think you're being a little harsh. I mean,
I know. No. Well, nothing like that happens. Like nothing game changing happens, or nothing.
Okay, well, to be fair, if something like I think the Cronenberg episode is like the one time something that game changing happened. I mean, even the cliffhanger ending of season 2 with Rick in prison, it's like we all knew Rick was going to get out of prison. You know what I mean? It's
yeah, I mean that's kind of obvious.
You know, so it's like I think that show. I think just the Cronenberg element of the show. It's just the thing that kind of was like, okay, everything is expendable. Like for example, based on Jacob, did you get to the Jerry daycare episode in season 2?
Where there's a bunch of Jerrys in that one place.
Yeah. In that episode, they basically like switch out the Jerry that we've been following with another Jerry, and then that's the Jerry that's on the show for the rest of the time. Because at the end of the episode, there's this mix-up, and Rick's like, whatever.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, so it's like the show does stuff like that, you know what I mean? Where it's like it'll play around with those alternate dimensions, and oh god, it's like I said, this episode, I mean, not every episode is going to be like that. I just think the thing that kind of creatively bankrupted this episode for me was I just did not like any of the Mad Max stuff. I just thought like outside of the Thunderdome stuff with the arm, that was fun, but I don't know. Like Summer's subplot was interesting in terms of like how she's dealing with things and her interactions with Rick. I didn't really care for the love interest thing with the hemorrhage guy, the buckethead guy. I don't know.
I think that's his name, like Hemorrhage or something like that.
Yeah, something dumb. I didn't really care for that subplot. I like how they kind of dovetailed in to make it about divorce yet again, and Rick and Morty are so fed up after 2 weeks, like, oh god, let's just get back to the real world so we can, like deal with this slightly more stable divorce situation.
And I was like, okay, you proved your point, Rick. Let's just get out of here.
I love the realistic bit kind of towards the end of the episode where Summer's coming home from work and the neighbors are like, they're being like really polite, but then they work in like, oh, by the way, scrap metal goes in the blue bin. Summer's like, yeah, got it. And they're like, man, she's a piece of work. It's like, I totally lived with that. Like, that is such a realistic depiction of how neighbors treat each other. I really appreciated that. It was such a throwaway thing, but I just liked it.
Yep.
Let's see.
And basically at the end, how Rick screws over their civilization yet again.
Yep. And I love that cut too, where it's like, okay, 2 weeks later, yeah, the entire civilization is like completely reworked itself. It's like all it takes is 2 weeks with Rick, and they've got power. They've got, it's basically a normal society instead of a post-apocalyptic society. And then Rick takes the power, and it's like all for naught.
Yeah. He probably planned that all along.
Probably.
Probably got some kind of sick pleasure out of it.
Well, I feel like Rick is in a lot of ways kind of like a more sadistic version of someone like Rocket Raccoon, where Rocket Raccoon kind of has this ongoing thing where he finds it hilarious, like the whole missing body parts thing. Like, you're like, oh, take that guy's fake leg, because he'll wake up and he'll realize he doesn't have it. Rick thinks like that, except on a planet, except on like a global level. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if I just completely screwed over this entire race of people, or even this entire dimension of reality?
Yeah, that's pretty much what he does. He pretty much does that on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. What do you think of the nonchalant robots? I know I kind of briefly mentioned them.
Oh yeah, the whole in the whole dice game, and when Robot Morty started to show the fish.
That was awesome. That was another one of my I think all the stuff with Morty, both in robot form and with the arm, are the best parts of the episode for me. I want to be free, mother. I want to hug you. I want to say I love you and have it not just be words. I want to eat ice cream and really taste it, not just have it slide down my mouth. I want to go frolic through the fields.
Yeah, that's.
And then he powers down, and I love how it reverts back to hello.
And Beth is none the wiser.
Oh God, it just kind of like when Rick powers down the both of them, and their heads just fall into the spaghetti. Like, that's kind of the sort of like darkly comedic imagery that this show is really good at. Like, oh geez, my sister just died in the spaghetti. Okay. Yeah. And the one other thing I want to touch on that it didn't get a lot of screen time, but I really liked it, is the Jerry subplot.
Oh yeah, at the very end.
Oh my God, the very ending is it's so pathetic, but it's just, oh my God, it's so well timed. I love it. Like, Jerry is just so meek. He's just like, are you sure? Like, it's like he's got the unemployment check and then also a bag of potato chips, and he's like, why would you want the piece of paper that only benefits me when you could have real food? And I love how the dog just growls, and like, that's enough for Jerry, like Jerry just caves in instantly. He's like, oh geez, okay. It's like, how
like
pathetic
a wolf,
is that?
Go for something. I don't know. But yeah. And then he just coughs it back. Then the dog just coughs it back up.
God. I do have a theory with the Jerry stuff that's going on, though, because you hear the loser whisper, and I think that's building towards something. Because we've seen what.
Is that unless it doesn't appear in any future episodes?
Oh, I mean, that's very possible, Jacob. It is very possible that it's just kind of like a funny sort of like manifestation of the self-doubt that Jerry's experiencing. Absolutely. But
is that even he's so pathetic, even the wind hates him.
Right. But my theory, though, Jacob, is that now we've seen in the trailer for season 3 that there's going to be an evil sort of like alternate dimension, like glowy version of Rick and Morty. And we see them kind of like causing havoc throughout this reality. And I'm thinking that the person who is whispering loser to Jerry is the alternate dimension version of Rick.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, all Ricks hit all Jerry's.
Because I could just imagine like the whole season we're building up like this alternate evil dimension version of Rick is like some sort of like powerhouse who's going to come in and just destroy the whole multiverse. And then in reality, this evil version of Rick just wants to troll Jerry. Like, that's just his whole mission, is just to troll Jerry.
Yeah, because honestly, the whole evil, not evil thing is kind of black and white at this point.
Right. Oh, yeah, especially for a character like Rick Sanchez, for sure.
It's like what is good? What isn't? It's like there's good, and then there's Rick.
Right. The good, the bad, and the Rick.
Yeah.
Has that been an episode title yet? Because if not, I feel like that needs to be an episode title.
Sure it has. It is just surprising because almost half the titles have the word Rick.
I know.
Surprisingly, I don't think any episode titles have Morty in it.
Well, no, but I mean it's the Rick thing, so that's kind of the running gag.
Yep.
No, the good, the bad,
Anyway.
and the Rick has not been used yet, and I'm very surprised. I really want to see that now. Okay.
Use it. Royland Harmon, use it.
Because it fits Rick's character so well. You know what I mean? It's almost like the good and the bad, you know. Anyways, you know what I mean.
Like he's good and bad, and he's Rick.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Sorry,
so
go ahead.
Yeah, it's fine. So next week, Jacob, we have got an epic episode coming up, something that is legendary, something that everyone has speculated about ever since they saw it in the, I believe it was a Super Bowl trailer or something like that. We saw this image a while ago. I'm Pickle Rick!
Oh,
whoa, I'm a pickle!
Oh yeah, I've been. I haven't.
So next week is Pickle Rick, which I am stoked for, because one of my favorite episode of the series is Meeseeks and Destroy, the Mr. Meeseeks episode. I think that episode is just perfection.
Aren't there two Meeseeks episodes?
No, there's just the one. Mr. Meeseeks is a character that like needs to return.
This one there was two, but never mind.
Mr. Meeseeks makes a cameo, but he doesn't have an episode.
All right.
Yeah, he makes his cameo in Blitz and Chips in the Jerry daycare episode. Let me see.
All right.
Jacob, have you seen the Tiny Rick episode from season 2?
I don't recall that one.
Whoa, look out, it's Tiny Rick! Jacob, I would very much recommend watching at least that episode before Pickle Rick comes on. I have no idea if they're going to be similar at all, but just the whole conceit of like Tiny Rick is Rick, you know, turns himself into like a person, like a tiny person to assimilate into high school to basically go on like an undercover mission. And with Pickle Rick, he's obviously doing some sort of mission, but he's turned himself into a pickle. So I have a feeling that Pickle Rick is going to be kind of like a spiritual successor to Tiny Rick in a lot of ways. Hold on, let me get the name of that episode for you. I know it's not just Tiny Rick. Let me see. I want to. It's Big Trouble in Little Sanchez.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, I don't think.
Yeah, you definitely check that one out before next week. All right. Any final thoughts, Jacob?
No, other than I look forward to what season 3 has to offer. I mean, I haven't really been following a lot of promotion stuff, but
yeah,
still, I do like this show, and I can't wait to see how it goes forward.
I like that this show is not like other Cartoon Network shows where it's like, okay, we're just going to give you like 5 episodes and take 3 months off. You know, this show, it's like, no, we're not going to fuck around with that. We're going to give you 1 episode a week like a normal damn TV show. So I kind of appreciate that in the midst of like the whole like Star versus the Force of Evil releasing 8 episodes at once, or Welcome to the Wayne releasing 5 episodes within the course of a week, you know.
Well, with Wayne, we don't know if they're like releasing any more anytime soon, though.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes they don't like release dates until like a week before they air.
And that's kind of my point, though. It's nice that with Rick and Morty, we've got like at least the next 4 or so weeks on the wiki. You know, it's like it's set. Like the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're good to go with new episodes. I don't know if they're going to take a hiatus. I hope not, but you know, we'll see.
Let's hope this hiatus isn't for another year and a half.
For like a year and a half. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to the revival of Tiki's Universe. Tiki's Universe is more or less going to be the focus of the channel for all intents and purposes. I mean, we're going to do other stuff as well. Like, we're still going to do movie reviews, TV show recaps, movie commentary, game shows. Absolutely. But Tiki's Universe is definitely like, there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline. So
the crown jewel.
Oh, yes. All right. Okay, guys. So see you guys later.